Okay, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the community room for the development agreement project that's proposed at 1560 Lincoln Boulevard. Glad to see you all come out tonight. My name is Dave Rand with the firm Armbruster Goldsmith Delvac, representing the applicant of the proposed project, NMS Properties. With me tonight is Mr. Scott Walter from NMS Properties and his team, as well as Lise Bornstein of Killer Firm Flameng Architects, the architecture firm that designed the project. I want to stress at the outset before we get going into the meat of the presentation that this is the start of what is a lengthy process to propose a project of this type. What you're going to see tonight is conceptual in nature. We're at the very beginning of the public stage of the process, and there'll be several hearings that will follow, several steps, and subject to change as the process continues. But we've put a lot of time and effort into developing a project which we think is quite interesting, impactful, and will revitalize the all-important corner of Lincoln and Colorado in a very significant way. So with that, let me give you a rundown of our agenda. We're going to start, and I'll do this, by going through the project description, identifying kind of the basic key elements of the project, and also some of the community benefits that will be provided as part of the project. This is a development agreement project, and so the community will receive certain benefits with construction of the project that are significant. Lise will then walk you through the architecture, the design, talk about the vision of the project, how it activates that corner, and then we'll close with an interactive Q&A session where you can ask anything under the sun about the project. So let me orient you to the site and the general downtown and how this site relates to other significant features in the downtown. Here you see Tongva Park. Here's the 3rd Street Promenade and the Expo Station. And we're right here at the corner of Lincoln and Colorado, the site of an existing Denny's store. We're about a quarter mile, which equates to a 5-minute walk from that Expo Station. So this is definitely a type of transit-oriented development given its close proximity to that light rail station coming in at 4th and Colorado. Here's an aerial of the site. Here you see the existing Denny's building and surface parking. See Colorado and Lincoln Boulevard, Norm's across the street. In terms of the project program, some of the basic elements, the project will have 100 rental housing units. One of the exciting features about this project, given what we've heard a lot from the community and from decision makers in Santa Monica, is this project is almost exclusively larger and family units. 86 of the units will be 2-bedroom, 10 will be 3-bedroom, only 4 will be 1-bedroom units, and no studios will be included in this project whatsoever. I think this is the only development agreement project proposed in Santa Monica, and there are many of them, that has this kind of unit mix program makeup with such an emphasis on larger units and more 2- and 3-bedroom units. The ground floor will be activated by about 12,000 square feet of commercial space. We envision that to be a combination of retail and restaurant activity. And the project will have 414 total parking stalls with 4 levels of subterranean parking, and I'll talk a little bit more about parking when I get to the community benefits discussion. In February of this year, the council, in recognition that there was a lot of development agreement projects pending in the queue, came up with some criteria for the planning department on how to prioritize the processing of all these projects. And housing projects were given 2 types of criteria to receive quote-unquote priority processing. And we're pleased to say that this project satisfies both of those criteria. The first criterion, as I mentioned, is the larger units. The council criteria was no more than 20% studios. We have none in this project. And at least 20% 2-bedrooms. The project consists of 86% 2-bedrooms and at least 10% 3s, and we hit that 10% 3-bedrooms with 10 3-bedroom units provided. In addition, the project also provides a great deal of affordable housing. 20 units, 20 of the 100 units, 20% of the building will be deed restricted for affordable households. 15%, or 15 of those units, will be restricted for the most needy. At 50% of the area median income, those households identified as very low income. 5% of the units will be restricted for more moderate income households, but those 5 units will be the larger units. So this project will provide deed-restricted, affordable family housing, a key feature, a unique feature of the project, and something the applicant is proud to offer as part of this development. Let me give you a little rundown on the loose and the zoning and how this project comports with the current development standards. This is a Tier 3 project under the loose. The loose has a tiered construct. The first tier is supposed to be ministerial, sort of by right projects. The second tier is discretionary with limited community benefits. And the third tier is generally a development agreement project with more enhanced community benefits, and that's where we're at. The loose sets out development standards for the mixed-use boulevard portion of the city that runs along on the map, but it runs along Lincoln Boulevard in this instance. And the project at 2.75 FAR and 60 feet in height is compliant with the loose mixed-use boulevard standards. To get to the FAR, you basically take the total project square footage, 103,000 square feet and change, and divide that by the size of this lot, which is 37,500 square feet. That equates to 2.75. And again, we're 60 feet and 5 stories. Now, the city is working on the downtown specific plan development standards. Lincoln Boulevard is included in the downtown district and therefore would be subject potentially to those development standards. Unclear what those will be. Those could impact and change the nature of the project, but the applicant will commit that whatever those standards will be, the project will comply with them. It'll just be a matter of time before we know what they are. Now I'll talk a little bit about the community benefits. The project provides, as I mentioned, affordable housing. 10 units are required as part of the city's affordable housing production program, and the additional 10 units are community benefit units above what's required. Excess public parking. This is a key feature and a key benefit of this particular project. When the downtown specific plan was first being contemplated, the planning department identified the Denny's site as a public parking benefit site. And what that meant is they were sort of gesturing towards the idea of including public parking at this location. Why? Because the idea was to concentrate public parking on the perimeter of the downtown as opposed to the interior of the downtown, so people could park on the perimeter and take alternative transportation into town, walk, bike, what have you, such that it would limit congestion, improve circulation in the core of the downtown. We heard that, and we responded by providing 150 public parking spaces that we believe will go a long way towards reducing parking impacts in the downtown area. Sustainability. We will achieve strong sustainability goals with this project. We are shooting to be the equivalent of a LEED Gold certified standard, which is a significant accomplishment for a building of this caliber. Activated public space. This is probably one of the most important features of the project. Lee is going to describe it in great detail, but given the critical importance of the corner of Lincoln and Colorado, with the Expo line coming in, given it's a gateway site for the city, we took great pains to make sure that that would be an interesting, active part of the street that would enhance the public realm, enhance the public experience, and liven that whole area. And as a result, we set about 2,300 square feet of publicly accessible space at the corner. We've widened the sidewalks to be compliant with the proposed downtown sidewalk standards. 20 feet wide sidewalks along Colorado, along Lincoln, 18 feet wide sidewalks along Colorado. So between the active pedestrian space, the outdoor restaurants, the widened sidewalks, we think this project is really going to make a huge impact on that corner for the pedestrian. Transportation demand management, obviously a key piece of the project. The idea here to reduce the vehicular trips that will be attributable to the project and improve traffic for the area. One of the ways we hope to achieve that is through unbundled parking. So the parking spaces will be severed from the rental housing units to encourage people to not have cars, to not have to take alternative modes of transportation, bike, walk, what have you. Transit passes will be provided to residents to induce them out of the car into alternative modes of transportation. The project applicant is going to commit to market to downtown employers. This is critical, obviously, because the more downtown workers that we capture living here in Santa Monica, the more we help achieve a better jobs housing balance and take cars off the road. We'll also comply with strict, what they call average vehicle ridership targets, or AVR targets, for the commercial component of the project. This will essentially mean that commercial employees will be required to have only one car for every 2 employees. The project is rich with bicycle amenities and parking spaces, about 250 total spaces, which equates to more than 2 per unit. Short-term, long-term, commercial short-term and long-term, and a number of amenities like a bicycle repair station, on-site showers, changing rooms, designated space for the future bicycle sharing program that the city may implement, all designed to really encourage folks not to drive, but to bike. Now I'll walk you around the downtown to give you a sense of some of the other projects that are being proposed. And I think what you will see is that this project at its program, its height, its FAR is very consistent and compatible with some of the other development that's pending in the downtown area. So here we start at a site at 525 Broadway, which is under construction. That's 60 feet in height, similar to the height of our building, and 3.7 FAR, actually much bigger in scale than our proposed project. There's 2 projects at 7th and Arizona, 702 at 3.0 FAR and 1317 7th Street at 3.5 FAR. Both are at 50 feet, but again, bulkier. 401 Broadway, this is an approved project. Height 56 feet, similar to ours at 5 stories, also bulkier at 3.75 FAR. There are 2 hotels being proposed, the OTO hotels on 5th Street across from each other. These are at 76 feet, roughly 74 feet and 75 feet, and 3.5 FAR. 1415 5th Street is proposed at 74 feet and 3.5 FAR. 501 Broadway, also on 5th, 65 units, 76 feet, 3.5 FAR. Again, all smaller than the Denny's project. And Lincoln, this is probably the most relevant project since it's right across the street, Kitty Corner, the Norm site. This is 100 units. It's going to, that's actually incorrect. It's proposed at 60 feet. And the FAR is also incorrect. The FAR is 2.75, very similar to the proposed Denny's project. So with that, I will turn it over to the architect, Lise Bornstein, who will give you an overview of the project design and the architecture.
Thank you. I do. Thanks. Blinded. Hi. Thank you so much for being here tonight. My name is Lise Bornstein, and I'm with Killefer Fleming Architects. We're a local architecture firm. We've been here over 30 years, and we've participated in a lot of buildings in the city of Santa Monica. For this design, we looked at this as an opportunity for an urban gesture. The project, when we started looking at this early on in our early schemes, we had designed the project to be sort of closed off. We were protecting the units from Lincoln. And we, probably 7/8 of the way through the project process, realized that this was not the way to do this, that we needed to open the project to Lincoln to be a part of this urban street and to be a part of Santa Monica's urban pedestrian planning ideas. So we decided that this site provided an opportunity for an urban gesture, and that urban gesture can really be viewed different ways from 3 different perspectives, from the train, the new Expo line coming by, which will pass right by our project, and the car on Lincoln Boulevard, and most importantly, the pedestrian. And that this big urban gesture can be interpreted or experienced in a much more intimate way as a pedestrian through differences and nuances in light and texture. Lincoln Boulevard, as you move north from the 10, has a very strong retail and residential rhythm. And quite frankly, that sort of dissolves on our site with the buildings being pulled back so far from the sidewalk. So we saw this as an opportunity for our project to knit back that continuity, that urban edge and that pedestrian edge along Lincoln as we move towards Colorado. In addition, we are along the Colorado Esplanade, and the Esplanade is under construction now. It's probably cause of a lot of traffic nightmare right now. But this is going to be a new pedestrian promenade that bridges between Lincoln and this new urban street and the Santa Monica Expo line. And so there's this opportunity for much more pedestrian traffic and to bring Lincoln really into the idea of downtown Santa Monica. And so we find ourselves at this intersection of these two really interesting and compelling circulation elements in the city. And we wanted the architecture to reflect that. And so this is an early concept sketch that we did showing how we wanted the, how we wanted the retail and residential rhythm to continue down Lincoln, yet start to erode and open up as we reach this corner to open up into this large urban plaza that Dave had mentioned earlier. We wanted an urban gesture at the corner to provide a balance to this, an organic feel to that corner that had some light and texture and ephemeral qualities. As you see here, the urban plaza is at our corner, and we've located all our retail along Lincoln and Colorado. As mentioned also before, we have the pedestrian easement along our property. We have 12 feet at Lincoln to make that 20-foot wide sidewalk, and we have a 10-foot easement along Colorado to make an 18-foot sidewalk. And what that does is it allows the retail to breathe and create a much softer retail edge with tables and chairs and movable pots without impeding pedestrian circulation. We also wanted to bring permeability into our project, again, to support that opening up to the urban fabric. So we created different axes of permeability culminating at the corner of our project at the urban plaza. And so at this level, at the ground level, the urban plaza has a breezeway that opens visually into our center courtyard. Center courtyard. And as you move up the second floor and above, we switched axes and pulled back the massing there to allow another view into our project. And the largest axis is the vertical axis, where we've opened up an oculus in the roof to allow an opening to the sky at that corner. We also recognize that this is a very pedestrian-rich, friendly environment. The urban plaza will be lined with retail, and we see it as an opportunity for activity and energy, and we wanted the residents of the building to be able to participate in that as well. And so we included and created these balconies that differ in depth and kind of rim around the edge of the plaza from the second floor up, so that residents can come out and participate in that urban moment with a visual connection to the plaza at the ground floor. There's also opportunities for uplighting at night at the corner, as well as strategic lighting along these sort of gossamer filaments. This is our elevation along Lincoln, and again you can see how the rhythm starts to break down towards the corner. And this is our elevation from Colorado, and this is the one that will be most experienced from the Expo line. We've also added roof decks and open areas within the project for the residents, and we wanted to give opportunities for tranquil areas inside the project. So we included a roof deck that opens to the courtyard, as well as 2 roof decks at the 4th floor. The one along Lincoln here opens up and has views of the mountains, and the roof deck along Colorado, while being part of that corner element, also kind of breaks away and offers sort of a front row view to watching the train go by. Dave mentioned the parking, and so I wanted to show how the public access to parking works on our site. So as he mentioned, we have 4 levels of underground parking. The bottom 2 levels are residential, and the top 2 and 2/3 levels are dedicated entirely to the public access parking. We have 2 commercial elevators here that come up and exit onto our breezeway and dump out into the urban plaza. We also have bike parking, both short-term and long-term, throughout the project, and a bike facilities that's at bike service area located in off 7th Court here. And then I'm going to pass back to Dave to explain public input process.
Careful. Thank you, Lise. So as I mentioned, long process, several opportunities for public input. We are here at the community meeting where we're hoping to get some input and feedback. Our next step will be a float-up meeting before the city's Architectural Review Board, where they'll get an early look at the design and architecture and materials and colors and give us a sense of their view. We'll go to the Planning Commission for a float-up. They'll provide their early input. And then we go to our official Planning Commission hearing, where the Planning Commission will make a recommendation to the City Council on whether or not to approve the development agreement. And the final decision-making body on the DA is the City Council. And then our last step is formal ARB approval for the design, materials, and colors of the project. So we bookend with ARB, start and end. So with that, that's our presentation. I should note that this is being filmed on City TV, which is why we use the mic, since it's a small room. We didn't need it otherwise. Taylor Gleeden from NMS will be coming up and taking notes, so we capture any of your comments and questions, and then they'll be publicly available and circulated meeting minutes, where you can see that we've captured all of your comments and suggestions. So with that, I'd love to invite anybody to ask a question, make a comment. Yes, sir. And I think I've got to give you the mic because we want to capture that on City TV.
Thank you. Good evening. What do you want? You want to stand in the light? Oh, my leg hurts. Turn the backlights on. I am President Barack Obama. I'm here to welcome you to Santa Monica. I'm wearing my white face today. Anyway, my question is, what's your estimated time frame from point 1 to final development and construction completion?
Thank you for the question. It's actually a very tough question because there's a lot of unknowns and variables in the process. If I were to take my best guess, I would say between 1.5 years and 2 years to final approval.
Finished construction when?
Finished construction, 2 years.
From today?
No. From 2 years completed after approval. So 3.5 years. You're welcome. But that's subject to a lot of potential changes and variables and things happening in the city that we can't exactly predict right now. Mr. Rubin.
Put the slide on the building?
Sure.
Thanks. Nice. It's a nice design. Jerry Rubin, Santa Monica. I go past there a lot. I think it's great that it's going to be a gold-lead developed building. I think it's great that you're going to have some more family units there, even though I'm supportive of the smaller units throughout the area too. I recognize that need. I think I like the balconies. I'd like to see, I guess you didn't finish it all, but I'd like to see much more landscaping, and even in the plaza area. I think that's always a great thing. Not to sound, well, I guess there's many people that would lament the loss of Denny's, but My personal feeling is I don't lament it as much as, let's say, Norm's across the street. You know, my friends used to go there more, and Denny's is a big chain, and they'll be okay. But I do think it's a beautiful building. I'm glad you're putting a lot of affordable housing in there, and even for very low income and low income, and a lot of stuff for bicycles, because I think that area is going to need it. I think it'll be a great view of the light rail, and I think I want to wish you the best. I think it's a great project, and the sooner it gets started, the better. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry. Appreciate those comments. Anybody else have any questions or comments? Yes, ma'am.
I have a few. Ellen Hannon, I live at 9th Street, right off of Wilshire. So I am part of downtown by 1 block. I'm just off on 1 block. Are you going to be part of Downtown Inc.? Do you realize what's going on there? The Downtown Inc. Corporation wants to incorporate Lincoln Boulevard, and what was your feelings on that? That was one question. If you have 2 and 3 bedrooms, you want families, but where are the families going to take their kids for recreation, and which school will they be attending? Did you do a model of this at all? And will you be bringing modeling, 3D modeling to the ARB meeting? We would like to see ARB meetings with 3D modeling of the site and also what's surrounding it. And also I'm concerned because the site next to you, to the north, I can't tell exactly where your property ends, if that one little strip between you and Bonds is part of your property or not, if you know what I'm talking about. Yeah. And also, I don't know if you're aware that Bonds is listed as an opportunity site, which means it could possibly go to 135 stories at this point in time. And if that would make any difference to your project, if a huge project comes in at that corner. And the photograph you showed was kind of an old photograph. I was wondering if hopefully you could get a newer photograph of the overview, because you don't have the building that's going up next to the park, just south of the park, which I think should be included. The unbundled parking, how are you going to make sure that they don't try to park in our neighborhood? We're pretty lucky that we have permanent parking on our neighborhood, preferred parking on our neighborhood with good hours. But I have noticed since whenever I come home now on Lincoln Boulevard at night, every meter is taken. So I guess people who are working or traveling downtown are parking at the meters. So I just want to know how you're going to keep, if you have unbundled parking, how you're going to keep your residents and your employees from parking in the neighborhoods and blocking up the other parking spaces that should go to other people. And I guess you have, that's like an overhang there along Lincoln Boulevard, and that's where you're going to have your tables and things. So that really wouldn't be a space for people to walk, because if the tables are there, and hopefully they're going to be like corridored off some way. I'm not sure what your plan is, because in that way it really doesn't make it a sidewalk. The problem with the sidewalk there is that people ride their bicycles, because no one wants to ride a bicycle on Lincoln. And they roller skate, and well, I know it's illegal, but that's what they do. I know they shouldn't, Jerry, but that's the reality of life in the city. You know, when you live in a city, you have to deal with the reality of life in the city. And my main concern has always been that they didn't put a bridge, Expo Bridge, over Lincoln, because the traffic there is just horrible. And one traffic accident is going to tie that intersection up for hours, because whenever there's a train car accident, it becomes a major project for the police and the investigation afterwards. So that's always been my concern, that they didn't foresee that they needed to put a bridge there. So I don't know if that would make a difference in your, if they do at some point in time need to put a bridge in, what that would do to your project also.
Thank you, Ellen. That was a lot, but appreciated. So let me go through these, and to be honest, most of this is just thank you for the comment, and we will be thinking about it and incorporating some of those suggestions and giving thought to that as we go further in the public process. But let me do what I can here for what we know at this point in time. Unsure about Downtown Inc. In fact, we don't have an answer on that yet, but again, we will give it some thought. I don't know where families necessarily will seek recreation environment or schools for that matter. The reality is there's been a sort of a big debate about the idea of family units in the downtown. Most of the decision makers that we've heard from believe there needs to be some, because there's been an impression, whether it's accurate or not, that there's been a large number of smaller studio and one-bedroom units produced, and that has not necessarily been offset by more 2s and 3s. So, this is the project that provides that opportunity, and we're responding to that. It's not to say that families will be guaranteed to live in every one of these units. Perhaps there will be, roommate arrangements. Perhaps someone will have an office in one of the bedrooms. Unclear, but this is a response to a lot of the calls for those type of housing product in the downtown, of which there's a sense that there hasn't been enough of to date. The property line, I believe the piece you're talking about is not included in the property site. And with respect to the Vons, there's no pending plans to develop Vons as an opportunity site. So if Vons were ever to be redeveloped, it certainly could impact this project, but we have no way of knowing what or if or when. Not much, if anything, we can do about that at this point in time. Hear you on the photo, good idea, and we will do that. And parking, I'm glad you asked about the parking impacts, because we really took pains to think about that issue, and that's why this project has so much parking. 4 subterranean levels of parking, over 400 spaces, and a lot of available spaces for the public. That's a big deal and very unique. And I should say that the code required spaces are based on the current zoning code standards, which most people believe are outdated and antiquated and call for too much public parking. So if you buy into that philosophy, we really have provided a lot of parking, and we've provided code required parking for all the retail and potential restaurant uses, so that won't be an issue in terms of spillover impacts. And then you have the additional 150 spaces for the public on top of that. So this is an answer to that problem. This is prophylactic. This is not going to be an impact or cause a problem.
What will it cost me? So you're going to charge $30 a day to park there. People aren't going to park there. That's sort of my
Unclear at this point in time whether the public parking spaces will be charged or not. Honestly, don't know. And that may be the case for some, but there will be others that will pay to park for the convenience. We know that. So I think while parking is always an issue and comes up in every project, I think this project design and the parking program will stand up to that concern. Bridge over Lincoln, or am I skipping one? Bridge over Lincoln, I've not heard of that. I don't think there are any plans for that. And nor do I think there's the money appropriated for that. Interesting idea, but I think that's out of all of our hands, unfortunately. With respect to the tables and the pedestrian environment, Lise, do you want to address how that will work in terms of the corner and whether there'll be enough room for pedestrians?
Oh, sure. I'd like to go back a couple, or we have a slide of the ground floor. Actually, right here. So there's a pedestrian easement on our property at 12 feet and 10 feet, respectively, for Lincoln and Colorado. And I think the intent is that a lot of that soft pedestrian landscape, we'll call it, streetscape, will occur in that zone. And then there's an additional 8 to 10 feet, however that sort of undulates along the edge, to preserve that pedestrian circulation so that soft edge component doesn't interfere with people going about their business.
Okay. Anybody else? Any other questions or comments? Okay. You're just warming up, huh, Ellen?
Well, I've lived here for almost 40 years, so I know the area well. So my other question, which I ask every developer, architect, he heard me the other night, is about the access to the alley for the delivery trucks and the garbage trucks, because that is a major problem along Lincoln, especially with the alleys. Right now, in my alley, on the other side of the street, we have 7 different garbage trucks come through weekly, and some of them come in twice a week. So that's a lot of garbage trucks, because each building has a different garbage truck coming through. And then if you put in a restaurant, you have between 5 and 7 deliveries a day for different types of things. The beer truck, the bread truck, this truck, the meat truck, the vegetable truck, all coming in. So it's quite a hassle. And so I'm assuming you're going to have probably restaurant type of things there. And so I just want to make sure where do the people come in, and where the deliveries will be, and where the trash will be. I just want to make sure you're thinking about it, because some people don't even think about it.
We have it. So I need the little thing, too short. Up here is our loading zone, and it's off the alley. And we have trash adjacent to this, and that's specifically just for the commercial loading and trash. And so we have provided a service corridor here with an opportunity for a service corridor as well in the back of the retail along Lincoln, just specifically for that reason, so that there's a way to keep that separate from the retail patrons.
Will the trash truck be sitting in the alley, or will the trash truck be coming onto the property?
That I'm not sure. Honestly, I don't know.
Yeah, see, that's the problem. What happens is the trash trucks come and they block the alley. And sometimes you have 2 trash trucks coming like this, one for the garbage and
Got
one
it.
for the recycling.
So
And the one truck then has to back out of the alley onto, like in my block, they have to back out onto Wilshire Boulevard, which is really difficult. And Wilshire blocks my alley. No one can get in and out. It's a real hassle. So that's why I'm requesting that the ARB and the city planners get together with you people before the building is put up, so you don't have these horror shows that we've had. I mean, I know the problem can be solved if people just put their mind to it.
yeah, and I think there's also, I mean, I think we'll take a look at that further as well. And my hope would be that the loading zone, which is a fairly tall space, could also accommodate some of that overflow as well, that there could be a pull-in. But I have to take a look at that further.
And you'll have a security guard back there to make sure that people use the loading zone, and not just park in the alley or park in the street and try to run in?
I would defer to the owner on that one, honestly.
It will be monitored.
It will be monitored? Okay, so it would be monitored.
Sure, of course.
Well, first of all, just to respond to Ellen's comment about bikes, yeah, I see bikes. I see bikes coming down the promenade. First of all, I think that it's a matter of education, and I think the Bike Coalition is doing a good job on that right now to let people know that it's just not a cool thing to do. It doesn't help anyone. But we also have to continue to educate motorists that they need to be sensitive, that bikes have the same rights as they do, and to be cool about that. One thing I'd like to ask, I'm a big blue bus supporter. That area of Lincoln has never had anything, and a shuttle might be helpful for the residents and businesses north of Pico Boulevard, where there is no public bus transportation or ever has been. And eventually, I hope that could happen to get people around and Santa Monica Boulevard and down and through the downtown area. And that's just something I hope the city and the BBB would think about.
Thank you for that, Jerry. One more comment, Ellen, with respect to parking and the unbundled parking. I neglected to mention. There will be a cost for market rate residents to purchase that parking in excess of the rental rates. That's the nature of unbundled parking. For the affordable units, however, for the deed-restricted units, for the households who may not be able to afford that, parking will be provided, free of charge. Either that or those individuals can receive a rental voucher up to $100 a month. So the idea is those folks won't have to pay for parking. They won't, as a result, impact the neighborhoods because it won't be an issue.
So if you have the residential ones on the bottom, how many residential ones are on the bottom? Because if they're free, and would people then be able to use them?
No, the parking will be segregated, and those parking spaces will be keyed to the units. So no, they'll be restricted for the residents.
So if the resident says that I don't want a parking space, then only another resident can use that parking space, right?
Oh, I see what you're saying. So you're saying if there's excess parking because a lot of residents opt not to, then those parking spaces are freed up to be utilized as excess spaces for the neighborhood. Perhaps there's a need for parking from another building or some other parking impacted issue, and that frees up parking opportunities.
The general public or just
Unclear how that will be worked at this point, but the idea is to provide some flexibility for that to relieve some of the parking impacts for the area. Any other questions? Okay, seeing none, well, thank you so much for coming out, for your comments. Appreciate you being here, and look forward to addressing these things, giving some of this stuff more thought, and going through the public process sooner rather than later, hopefully. Thank you.